Rain stitched the night together, needling the tar and glass of Gotham, until the whole city sounded like a crowd whispering. Daredevil kept to the dark lip of a rooftop, his billy club magnetized to a vent cap as he leaned into the wind and listened. 2 blocks away, a heartbeat that never spiked. Calm, disciplined, predatory. Bullseye. He'd tailed that heartbeat out of New York. Subway to train yard to the undercarriage of a freight car, then across the river where the scent of home. Diesel, hot pretzel carts, pepper spray on a cop's belt. Gave way to something older and meaner. Gotham's air carried copper from wet iron, ammonia from alleys too narrow for sun, the moldy sweetness of a carnival left to rot, and beneath it all, a new note. Military-grade plastique, oily and sharp, like fear with a fuse. Kingpin was moving product through a new city. Matt had heard it from Turk, from a bartender with a cracked tooth in Hell's Kitchen, from a priest who knew when confessions didn't match the crimes. The name that kept returning with the crates was not a name anyone sane wanted: Joker. Across the street, Bullseye ghosted through a broken skylight and into an abandoned tenement. Daredevil breathed the move, felt the wake of disturbed air, counted 2 steps, then 3, and let himself drop after him. He landed on dusty stair treads that coughed underfoot and descended into a dead hallway. Pipes ticked, water moaned. At the far end, 2 men traded money for a case whose latches sang like knives when they snapped open. Inside, 4 bricks of C4 and a nest of wires. "Cute," Bullseye said, idly rolling a marble-sized ball, bearing across his knuckles. But he wanted more bang for his punchline. "Got anything with glitter?" The seller laughed too loudly. The ball bearing popped from Bullseye's knuckle, curved across 10 feet, and shattered the man's front tooth. He giggled blood and regret. Matt was already moving when a 3rd heartbeat slid into the house from the roof. Lighter, springier, steady as a metronome in motion. Gymnast, truncheons with polymer cores. He felt the sticks clip the stair rail 3 floors up, heard the faint rubber squeak of custom soles correcting a landing. Nightwing hit the floor at the far end of the corridor with a dancer's grace and a cop's stance. "GCPD says there's a fireworks ban, pal," he called to Bullseye, voice warm but edged. "And you don't look like the kind of clown that got a permit." Bullseye's grin tilted. "You'd be surprised how many permits I collect." Nightwing moved first, a blur that broke the distance with a tumbling weave. Bullseye's hand flicked, the ball bearing snapped forward. A baton twitched. Clang, and the bearing sang off into the dark. The second throw was a razor flake aimed at Nightwing's brow. Daredevil's hand cut the air and snatched it blind. 3 beats collided. Nightwing slid to a stop, eyes behind the domino mask focusing on the red silhouette in the gloom. "You the buyer or the backup?" "Neither," Matt said, voice flat. "I'm the warning." "Cute," Bullseye repeated, and kicked the open case. Wires spilled like snakes. Then he vaulted backward through a busted door, choosing flight over a 2-on-1. Matt and Nightwing gave chase, sprinting down the hall as Bullseye ricocheted through rooms, never in a straight line, never long enough to be pinned. He hurled a splinter of molding. Nightwing rolled under it. He skipped a nail across a beam. Matt felt the trajectory, turned his head a hair, and heard it whisper past his ear. Bullseye dove through a 2nd-floor window. Glass like rain around his shoulders, landed on a fire escape, and was gone into the night. They hit the window a second later. Nightwing perched on the frame, rain slicking his hair flat, and took a breath. "You're not Gotham," he said without looking back. "You smell like hot dog water and Catholic guilt." "New York," Matt said. "You're not Batman." "Working on it," Nightwing said. Then vaulted to the escape. They ran together over iron spines and dipped gutters. Sirens were distant and disinterested. Gotham had triage, and whatever Bullseye was, he wasn't top of the Knight's list yet. 2 roofs later, Nightwing stopped cold, one gloved hand up. Matt heard it too. A laugh rolling across the rain, bright as a toy with its batteries dying. Joker. Farther away, steadier and small. Lub-dub, lub-dub. A teenage heartbeat, fast with adrenaline, clipped with pain. Jason. Nightwing's voice tightened until the quip fell out of it. He's got Jason. Your partner. My brother. They angled toward the sound, but another shape landed between them and the echoing laughter. All cape and angles and a presence that sucked light out of the alley. Stand down, Batman said. It wasn't a shout. It didn't need to be. The voice was the sound of a door closing on arguments. Nightwing didn't flinch. He's with me, he said. Kind of. We ran into Bullseye. Bullseye. Batman's cowl turned an inch toward the blind man. The rain turned his lipless line into a saw. You brought your problems to my city. Daredevil held his ground. Your city imported mine. The explosives broker you didn't stop had a client. That client's mine. We don't have time for a turf war, Nightwing cut in. Joker's moving Jason, and if this Bullseye is here, it's not just a snatch job, it's a production. Batman stepped close enough that Matt could taste the Kevlar and graphite in the cape's wet. He smelled the belt oil and an antiseptic that was all wrong for hospitals. Patches and painkillers hidden in brass and ceramic. He listened to the bat's breath, controlled, angry, anger throttled into a tool. What do you hear? Batman asked. Matt blinked once. Trust was earned in inches, but a boy's heartbeat was sprinting toward a deadline. A warehouse by the old Buckles foundry, he said. The river's pushing through broken pilings there. It sounds like teeth. 2 trucks idling too long. A dozen men. 1 laugh. 1 boy. 1 set of steps that never scuffs, even when they turn. A man who has never misjudged distance in his life. Bullseye, Batman said. Jason, Nightwing said, already moving. They moved as 3, and the city moved against them. Gotham didn't do straight lines, it did ambush geometry and blind alleys and staircases that broke your ankles for asking for help. Twice they cut through rival operations. Once they dropped into a dogfight between gangs over turf nobody wanted. Batman's presence ended arguments. Daredevil's billy club ended runners. Nightwing's humor stitched the holes their urgency tore open. When a kid with a knife stepped into their path, voice shaking, Batman's hand touched his shoulder and the knife vanished. Go home, he said, and somehow the boy did. They reached the river where it chewed pilings, and the roar of water turned conversation into gestures. The Buckles foundry squatted by the flood like a bad memory. Stacks of pallet-wrapped crates made new walls inside the old. Corridors of plastic and whispering promise. On the near dock, 2 trucks idled with the hot patience of animals ready to pull. Batman lifted a gloved finger. The line he drew in the air broke the building into 3 entrances. He tapped his chest, then the central door. He tapped Nightwing, then a rusted catwalk. He pointed to Daredevil, then the lower loading bay. The look after that was a question he didn't voice. Can you work with me? Matt nodded once. Nightwing bumped his shoulder as they split. Hey, he said softly. No dying tonight. House rule. Yours or his? Matt asked. Both, Nightwing said, and the grin was back, brittle and brave. Inside, the smell of explosives was formal and clean. Whoever had packed the bricks did it with love. Beneath that, older layers. Oil, rodent musk, mold, graphite dust. And under all of it, a heartbeat tied to a chair with tape and pain. Jason. Matt slipped along the lower bay, where the river licked the concrete. He counted men by their feet, by the way boots telegraphed impatience through cheap soles. 6 on the floor, 2 above on a mezzanine, 1 set of steps that never scuffed, now still, waiting. Showtime, Joker sang somewhere up and left, each syllable bouncing off rafters like spinning plates. Gotham's favorite audience participation piece. Will he? Won't he? Can the bat save his bird? Or will the punchline land? Boom! A laugh. Then the click-snap of a pen light, the whir of a timer checked and reset. On the catwalk, Nightwing flattened to steel. He raised 2 fingers, then stabbed them down. The motion set 2 charges on the east wall. He tapped his temple twice. Remote. He pointed with his chin at a nest of wires, snaking out from a crate marked with a falsified Star Labs stencil. Down on the floor, Daredevil flicked his baton's cable and reeled himself beneath a rail to a stack of pallets. He slid a hand into the gap and found the first brick by the hum of the timer's jitter. He could defuse by touch, but he counted the heartbeats and rewrote the plan. 30 seconds to be safe. 20 to cut it fine. 10 to be a story the city told itself about the night the devil in red came and stole a laugh. Batman ghosted through the center like darkness learning to walk. He didn't stir the air enough for Matt to hear him, but the men on the floor did, somewhere in their animal brains. Spines prickled, rifles shifted. A whisper tried to be prayer and failed. Boys, boys, Joker sighed, from the platform overlooking the concrete sea. You hear him, don't you? The world's most judgmental bat, flapping in with a new friend. Did you bring me a lawyer, Bats? Is this the seeing eye dog version? I've tried everything else. Bullseye stepped into silence, with a sound that wasn't one, just the memory of a step. He cocked his head where Matt hid. The grin that followed was small and personal. Thought you'd keep this dance in Hell's Kitchen, he said. But I like your taste, the ambiance, the dreadful civic planning. He moved without warning, a flick of the wrist that spat a washer at the fuse box. The building gulped and the lights died. Night made more noise in Gotham than day. Water, rats, distant traffic, a ship horn like a throat clearing to tell a joke. In the new black, Daredevil had every advantage and lost one. Bullseye loved the dark too. Find the boy, Batman's voice threaded the shadows low and close. I'll take the clown. I'll keep the juggler busy, Nightwing breathed, somewhere above. The first 2 men on the ground went down before they finished cursing the lights. A baton found a wrist. A knee took a thigh. A chin met a steel post, like an old friend. On the mezzanine, a taser cracked and a body folded. Nightwing rolled through, hands a metronome of concussive taps. Joker's laugh hopped catwalks. Oh, I love this one, he sang. We should have booked a quartet. Maybe get that nice boy with the skull shirt, HM. He brings such gravitas. Bullseye cut sound into weapons. A coin snapped off a support and rebounded toward Daredevil's ear. Matt leaned and heard it, saw air past his jaw. A bolt clattered, ricocheted, and would have ripped Nightwing's calf if a gloved hand hadn't caught it by memory and stubbornness. Rude, Nightwing muttered, then flicked it back. It pinged 5 times, hit nothing that mattered, and Bullseye laughed softly. Kid can count, he said. Batman hit Joker like a verdict. The crash of bodies into rail made the timer skip. The clown oofed, then squealed, delighted by pain he didn't have to invent. You found me, he gasped, and you brought a date. Where is he? Batman said. Not a question. A threat that chose English as a courtesy. He? Which he? Joker kicked, flailed, bit for sport. Oh, that he. He's around. Whole place is very cozy, Bruce. The name didn't change the heartbeat. Batman's did. It thudded once, heavier. then reasserted discipline. Matt followed the boy's rhythm through crates. He found Jason tied to a chair with a split lip and a firefighter's knot around his chest, sloppy but snug. He found the bomb by smell and by the static itch of a cheap timer. He found the failsafes by the way they talked to the room. 3 lines out in different directions. Jittery Morse, from loops that would close if someone cut the wrong wire, or moved the wrong weight, or breathed hope into the wrong moment. "Hey," Jason rasped, eyes trying to find the voice. "You, not him." "Not tonight," Matt whispered. "I'm a friend of a friend." "You got a funny face for a friend," Jason said, but the bravado was a sheet over shaking bones. "Keep your heart slow," Matt said, hands already ghosting over tape and lead and wire. "Think of flying Graysons," Jason said, a reflex he'd picked up from someone else's nostalgia, or whatever Dick won't shut up about. "Think of that," Matt said, "and keep it slow." Above them, Bullseye and Nightwing found their rhythm. It wasn't pretty, it was precise. Bullseye turned debris into a symphony. Nightwing turned angles into arguments that ended with gravity making his case. Batman and Joker made a storm in silhouette. Black cape, white grin, fists and flower squirts, and the dull thunk of a head meeting a rail. Each hit Joker took he metabolized into a punchline he'd save for when the world was respectable again. "Tick-tock," he sang through teeth and blood. "I'd hurry if I were you, Batbo." A gloved hand took his throat and closed it gently enough not to break, firmly enough to re-educate air. "Where is Bullseye's trigger?" Batman asked. Joker's eyes sparkled. "On his finger," he whispered. "Silly." "Remote failsafe left pocket," Nightwing called without looking, as if he'd seen the tiny movement of Bullseye's shoulder when he'd tapped his coat a minute before. He'd seen something else too, a thin wire that disappeared beneath the railing and down toward exact doom. And a dead man's switch under the platform. He's wired the wire. "You've grown up," Joker cooed, delighted. "I hate it." Matt counted the timer's voice in his fingers. Tick, tick, tick. A stuttering 2-beat that wanted to be 4 when the world shook. He traced the first loop to a pressure plate under the chair. The second loop kissed a supporting beam. The third loop dove into a junction box that hummed wrong. The hum of a cheap radio waiting for a choir. Remote detonate, redundant circuits, a Joker's joke in the literal sense. "Can you?" Jason began. "Yes," Matt said, but not alone. He lifted his head and found the bat in the dark with senses that didn't require eyes. "I need 10 seconds, he said, and let the urgency into his voice for the first time. No movement near the platform. No hits that rattle the floor. And someone needs to make Bullseye use his hand." "I can make everybody use their hands," Joker said, giggling through a constricting throat. "Dick," Batman said, already moving with the care of a surgeon in an earthquake. "Cut the remote. I'll pin the clown." "And our guest?" Nightwing asked, darting along the rail like a heartbeat, becoming a melody. "Leave Bullseye to the devil," Batman said. "Compliment taken," Matt murmured, fingers settling on the first wire, feeling electricity twitch like a thought. Nightwing kicked a grate. It flew, clanged, and Bullseye's hand twitched exactly as predicted, toward his pocket, toward control, toward comfort in chaos. Daredevil moved on that twitch, a lash of cable snapping to Bullseye's wrist and yanking it wide. The remote skittered across metal, fell, and a baton pinned it like a butterfly. Bullseye spun, smile small and fond. "Just us again," he said. "Just us," Matt said, and twisted the first wire free. The timer hiccuped. The foundry held its breath. On the platform, Joker saw the shape of the knight and laughed like a revelation. "He's going to ruin our history," he choked. "Isn't that delicious, Bats? Imagine the headlines, 'Boy Wonder fails to die.' I could never top that." Batman's answer was a silence so heavy it bent the air. Matt slid his thumb under tape slick with river damp and found the second wire by the way it vibrated against the pallet's grain. He cut on the upbeat. The timer stuttered again, confused to be ignored. "2," he said. Bullseye moved and Daredevil moved with him. Every throw met with a ricochet that ended in nothing. Every stride checked by a cable that knew where ankles wanted to be. Nightwing's baton cracked the remote's shell like a crab. A circuit cried and died. Joker blinked, considered improvisation, and decided the best improv was always the same. More noise. "Gentlemen," he cried, and slammed the heel of his shoe into the dead man's switch under the platform. The floor shivered. The timer lunged toward 4-4 time. "Now," Batman said, and the word meant everything, everywhere at once. Matt's fingers closed on the final wire, the one braided to look honest. He felt the backflow through it, the last little lie that would kill a boy and write a headline that never stopped bleeding. He rolled it between finger and thumb and found the seam a sloppy bomber had hidden in a hurry and cut. The timer went dumb. The little staccato heartbeat in the box stopped trying to be music. In the hush that followed, Jason Todd's pulse stood alone, fast but whole, a sound like a promise. "Clear," Daredevil said. At the exact second, three things happened. Nightwing's heel hooked Bullseye's ankle and put him on one knee. Batman's fist found the exact square inch of Joker's jaw that had been waiting its whole life to meet it. And out on the dock, the first truck's engine revved for flight. Gotham exhaled. The rain grew louder. Somewhere in the roof, a pigeon decided not to die tonight. Nightwing dropped from the catwalk, rolled, and slid across the concrete to Matt and the boy. "Move him?" he asked. "Slow," Matt said. "Plate under the chair will cry if we lift wrong, but it won't blow." He allowed himself one breath of relief. Not anymore. Batman looked down at Joker, who was smiling around a mouth that would be soup tomorrow. "New friends, Bats," Joker said dreamily. "I'm so proud. You're finally networking." "We're not friends," Batman said. "Oh, I know," Joker whispered, and his eyes fell on the boy, alive, breathing, and widened with something like awe. "Oh, now that's funny." On the floor, Bullseye wiped rain and blood from his lip and stood as if strings lifted him. He tilted his head at Daredevil, at Nightwing, at the boy, at the bomb that had decided not to write tonight's history. His smile turned thoughtful, which was worse than sharp. "Kingpin's going to be so disappointed," he said, conversational as Sunday brunch. "We had a whole route planned. Hubs at this river, at your river, and a third where clowns go to buy their toys." "Not tonight," Nightwing said. "Tonight, tomorrow," Bullseye shrugged. "Time's a circle if you know how to throw it." His hand twitched. 3 screws leapt from the floor. One for Nightwing's throat, one for Matt's hand, one for Jason's carotid. The bat moved before physics admitted it. A cape became a wall. A gauntlet became a noise that ate other noises. 2 screws died against armor. The third kissed Matt's glove and ricocheted harmlessly into wood. Joker applauded with the tips of his fingers. "Oh, bravo. The family grows." The trucks growled louder, then shifted into reverse. Back into the labyrinth of crates and alleys a good exit needs. Batman turned his head an inch, and the plan changed without words. "Nightwing," he said. "Exfil with Jason. Devil with me." "For what?" Bullseye asked, genuinely curious. To cut the head off the snake, Batman said, eyes like cold steel, hunting a furnace, Kingpin. Bullseye's smile thinned. You'll need a bigger city. Batman didn't blink. We have one. The warehouse trembled as the trucks tore away, and the foundry's old bones answered with groans. Nightwing's hands were already moving, tape peeling, knots loosening. A boy's weight transferred to a brother's back. Jason clutched Nightwing's shoulder and tried for a joke and failed, so he borrowed one. No dying tonight, he muttered. House rule. Yeah, Nightwing said softly. You remembered. Daredevil reeled his cable, felt the city's night stretch ahead like a gauntlet, and stood beside the man in the cape. The devil and the bat faced the killer who never missed, and the joke that never ended, and beyond them, a king with hands in two worlds. Act 1 ended where Gotham liked to leave people, on a ledge above deeper dark. The boy lived, the bomb didn't. The clown smiled, the assassin adjusted his aim, and out in the rain engines fled toward docks packed with crates that wore two brands at once, Oscorp stenciled over Star Labs blue. Move, Batman said. The Buckles foundry faded behind them, swallowed by Gotham's rain and the dull pulse of sirens that wouldn't find the right street for another hour. The city's sound shifted, no longer the laughter and gunpowder chaos of the Joker, but the industrial heartbeat of Gotham's East docks, diesel engines, winches groaning under a load, the churning slap of the harbor against rusted hulls. Daredevil paced Batman's stride along the rain-slick roofs, his radar sense drawing the map ahead. The dockyard sprawled like a sleeping beast, massive cranes with rusted ribs, stacks of shipping containers leaning like bad teeth, floodlights stabbing through the mist. Beneath the mechanical noise, there were other heartbeats, dozens of them paced and steady. Professionals, not Joker's wildcards, men who had drilled for this night. Bullseye was one heartbeat among them, pacing slow, whistling a bar from something old and happy. And above them all, heavier than any heartbeat had a right to be, was the rhythm of a man who didn't run, didn't hide, and didn't need to. Kingpin. They reached the high gantry overlooking Pier 13. Batman crouched, cloak swallowing the steel, and produced a small monocular from his belt. Shipments here, he said quietly. Matt didn't need the monocular. He could hear the forklifts, smell the chemical sting of fertilizer-grade explosives, mixed with the sweet rot of imported fruit meant to disguise them. How much? He asked. Enough to level half of Gotham, Batman said. And enough Oscorp tech in those containers to build the other half into something worse. Matt's jaw tightened. Kingpin's consolidating. Not just consolidating, Batman said, expanding, with Joker's chaos covering his first push. Below them, two convoys of trucks idled near the edge of the pier. Men in black coats and tactical rigs moved with silent precision. Others unloaded crates from a container stenciled with Star Labs markings, the same as the ones at Buckles. Interspersed were other crates, Oscorp, Fisk Industries, even blank ones that smelled faintly of gun oil and solvent. And in the middle of it all, a white suit the size of a slab wall, flanked by two armed guards. Kingpin's bald head gleamed under the dock lights. His posture was serene, almost ceremonial, as though the rain were nothing but applause. Two entrances from here, Batman said. The north service stairs, the south crane arm. You take the north, I'll draw fire from the south. And Bullseye, Matt asked. I'll keep him busy until you get to Fisk, Batman said. Matt gave a small, humorless smile. You'll try. They split. Matt descended the north service stairs, bare metal groaning under his boots. The rain masked his approach until he was 2 steps above the dock. and then a whistle rose from the shadows. "Thought you'd take the night off," Bullseye's voice drawled from the darkness, between stacked containers. "But I guess I should have known. You've got that Catholic work ethic." Matt turned toward the sound, billy club in hand. "You've got a lot of nerve still being vertical." "And you've got a lot of faith in your friends," Bullseye said, stepping into the dim spill of a floodlight. His smile was wide, wolfish. In one hand, he twirled a screwdriver. In the other, a dock worker's hard hat. "Because Batman's not going to make it past the third crate." Matt's grip tightened. "Then I'll make it to Fisk before you make it to him." The first throw was the screwdriver, point first. Matt ducked, it embedded in the wall of the stairwell behind him. The second was the hard hat, spinning like a buzzsaw. Matt batted it away. And Bullseye was already moving, pulling a crowbar from nowhere, swinging for Matt's head. The clang of steel on steel echoed over the dockyard. On the south side, Batman emerged from the shadows like an executioner. 3 guards went down before their rifles cleared their holsters. Kingpin's eyes found him immediately. Calm, curious, like a man watching an unusual chess opening. "You've been busy," Batman said, voice low and even. "I diversify," Kingpin replied. His voice was a velvet slab, deep and heavy enough to fill the space between them. "And now, I acquire." "You won't leave the docks?" "You think too small," Kingpin said. He raised one thick hand, and more than a dozen men stepped out from behind the containers, weapons up. Batman's fist clenched. "Then I'll cut the head off here." Back at the north end, Daredevil and Bullseye tore through the narrow canyons between containers. Bullseye turned every scrap of the dock into a weapon. Nails, bolts, a shard of glass from a broken lantern. Each throw faster and more precise than the last. Matt countered with instinct and radar sense, redirecting each projectile just enough to make it harmless. "You always fight like this?" Bullseye laughed, dodging a strike. "Like you're dancing in the dark and hoping God's your partner?" "I fight like I want people to walk away," Matt said, cracking Bullseye's ribs with an elbow strike. Bullseye staggered, grinning through the pain. "Then you're in the wrong city." Batman closed the distance to Kingpin in 3 steps, cloak flaring. He struck. A straight armored jab aimed at the sternum. Kingpin caught it with one massive hand. The dock groaned under their combined weight as Kingpin shoved back, sending Batman sliding half a step. "You're strong," Kingpin said almost admiringly. "But Gotham's mine now." From the north, a voice cut through the rain. Jokers, high and mocking. "Now it's a party." Matt's senses caught the shift. Joker had arrived on the dock with his own crew, moving toward a separate shipment. His laughter masked the soft click of detonators. Bullseye disengaged, retreating toward Joker. "We'll finish later, Hornhead," he called. Matt vaulted up a container, scanning the pier. Kingpin was holding Batman in a brutal grapple. Joker was wiring a container with enough explosives to sink the pier. Bullseye was covering him. And in the shadows near the harbor edge, another set of footsteps, lighter, faster, a kid's heartbeat. Jason. Matt didn't hesitate. "Batman," he called. "They brought Jason here." The bat's head snapped toward the sound, just enough to see Bullseye's next throw coming, and catch it. The moment's distraction broke Kingpin's grip. Batman slammed a smoke capsule to the dock, vanishing into the haze. Joker's laughter pitched higher. "Oh, this is gonna be historic." By the time the smoke cleared, the battle lines had shifted. Batman charging through Joker's crew toward Jason. Daredevil vaulting over a crane arm to intercept Bullseye before he could line up a kill shot. Kingpin directing his men to load the remaining Oscorp crates onto a waiting freighter. and the rain kept falling, drumming against the dock as Gotham's night spiraled towards something worse. The dockyard had become a living war zone. Floodlights swung wildly, their beams slicing through mist and smoke, catching flashes of movement, the snap of a baton, the curve of a thrown blade, the flutter of a black cape in the wind. The air was thick with cordite and the oily stink of diesel, and under it all was the deep, steady churn of the freighter's engines as it prepared to leave Gotham with its cargo. Daredevil landed hard on the wet steel of a crane arm, boots slipping before finding balance. Below, Bullseye stood with one knee bent, a steel pipe balanced in his hand like a javelin. He grinned up at Matt. You ever wonder which one of us is better when there's no rules? Matt didn't answer. He vaulted down, billy club in one hand, the other already moving to block the inevitable first strike. Bullseye's throw came fast. The pipe spun end over end, a blur in the rain. But Matt ducked under it and drove his shoulder into Bullseye's ribs. They hit the dock and rolled, splashing through a puddle that smelled faintly of gasoline. On the far end of the pier, Batman moved like a blade through Joker's thugs. His strikes were quick, efficient, a wrist broken here, a jaw shattered there. But Joker kept retreating toward the containers, pulling Jason along by the collar like a puppet on a string. Jason's hands were bound, his face pale under the sodium vapor lights, eyes darting from Batman to the freighter. "You're just in time, Bats," Joker cackled, waving a detonator. "I saved you a front row seat for the world's first nautical comedy act. Step 1, load the cargo. Step 2, boom. Step 3, nobody laughs but me." Batman's growl cut through the chaos. "Let him go, Joker." Joker's painted smile widened. "And miss the chance to see you choose between your little birdie and the whole damn pier? I think not." Kingpin had not moved far from his position, but his presence loomed over the battlefield like a storm. He directed his men with short, precise gestures. Crates marked Oscorp were being rushed onto the freighter while others laid down covering fire. His calm in the chaos was unnerving, a predator certain of victory. Daredevil and Bullseye traded blows in the middle of the dock, each hit ringing out like hammer on anvil. Bullseye used everything: a broken chain, a shard of crate wood, a wrench stolen from a toolbox. Each one launched with perfect lethal precision. Matt countered with pure grit, closing distance, forcing Bullseye into hand-to-hand where his advantage thinned. "You're getting slow, Murdoch," Bullseye taunted, landing a glancing blow to Matt's temple. Matt gritted his teeth and slammed a knee into Bullseye's side. "I'm getting tired of your voice." Nightwing burst from the shadows, sliding across the slick dock into the fray. "Need a hand," he called, flicking a baton that clipped Bullseye across the jaw. Bullseye stumbled, spat blood, and grinned. Cute. Didn't know Gotham's acrobats joined the circus in pairs. "Funny," Nightwing said. "I didn't know you liked getting punched twice as much." He moved in alongside Matt, the two of them pushing Bullseye back step by step. Meanwhile, Batman closed the gap to Joker, his cape snapping like a banner in the wind. The detonator in Joker's hand clicked, and the sound was followed by the low, ominous whine of explosives arming. Batman lunged, his gauntleted fist wrapping around Joker's wrist, forcing it upward. The two struggled, Joker laughing manically, even as Batman's grip threatened to shatter bone. "Careful, Bats," Joker hissed through clenched teeth. "You might save him and still lose everything else." That was when Kingpin finally moved. His heavy steps were deliberate, the dock creaking under his mass. He intercepted Batman with a single arm to the chest, shoving him back a full meter. Batman's boots squealed against wet steel. "You're in my way," Batman said. "This isn't your fight anymore," Kingpin replied. "Gotham's just another board in a much larger game." The next seconds were a tangle of simultaneous violence. Bullseye ripped a baton from Nightwing's hand and flung it at Matt's head. Matt ducked, letting the weapon crack against a stack of crates. Nightwing used the opening to slam a knee into Bullseye's gut, following with a sweep kick that sent the assassin to the ground. Batman and Kingpin collided, the sound like a tree splitting under its own weight. Kingpin's sheer power forced Batman backward, but the Bat's strikes landed in flurries, targeting joints and nerve clusters. Joker tried to drag Jason toward the freighter's gangway, but Jason stomped hard on the clown's instep, earning himself a backhand across the face, but slowing their progress. Matt broke from Bullseye for half a breath, long enough to scan the dock with his senses. The explosives were everywhere. Under crates, along support beams, even hidden inside a forklift's engine housing. Joker had wired the pier to go up in one chain reaction. "Batman," Matt shouted over the rain and gunfire. "We've got less than 2 minutes before this whole place goes." Batman ducked a swing from Kingpin and slammed a palm strike into the bigger man's throat, forcing him back. "Get Jason clear," he barked. Nightwing moved first, vaulting over Bullseye and sliding into Joker's path. His baton cracked across Joker's forearm, knocking the detonator loose. Jason fell back into Nightwing's arms, coughing. "You all right, kid?" Nightwing asked, already cutting the ropes on Jason's wrists. "I'm fine," Jason said, voice shaking, "but you better hit him for me." Nightwing grinned grimly. Gladly. Bullseye wasn't done. He lunged for Nightwing and Jason, but Daredevil intercepted, the two of them locking into a final brutal exchange. Bullseye swung a broken knife. Matt twisted his wrist until bone popped. Bullseye snarled, headbutted Matt, and reached for a nail on the ground, only for a billy club to snap up under his chin, dropping him to his knees. "Stay down," Matt growled. Batman drove Kingpin toward the edge of the pier, each strike landing with calculated precision. Kingpin retaliated with crushing body blows, one of which sent Batman skidding dangerously close to the water's edge. "You fight well," Kingpin said, "but you can't stop the tide." "I've stopped worse," Batman replied, ramming an elbow into Kingpin's ribs and following with a hook to the jaw that finally staggered the giant. Joker, seeing the tide turn, let out a high, theatrical sigh. "Well, this isn't fun anymore." He stumbled toward the freighter's gangway, but froze when a batarang embedded itself in the dock in front of him. Batman's glare met his in the mist. "Not tonight," the Bat said. The first explosion tore through a stack of crates at the far end of the dock. The chain reaction had started early. "Move," Batman ordered. Daredevil, Nightwing, and Jason sprinted toward the service stairs. Batman threw a final batarang at Kingpin, forcing him to stumble back as the pier beneath him began to crack. Joker dove into the harbor, disappearing in the churn. Kingpin retreated onto the freighter, barking orders for it to leave immediately. The dockyard roared with fire and shrapnel as the heroes cleared the last stretch of pier, the freighter pulling away into the storm. They regrouped under the cover of a half-collapsed crane. Jason leaned against Nightwing, still catching his breath. "You saved him," Matt said to Batman. Batman's eyes met his, unreadable. "We saved him." The night was far from over. Kingpin still had his cargo. Joker had escaped, and Bullseye would be back. But Jason Todd was alive, and in Gotham that was a victory worth bleeding for. The rain washed the dock clean, but the air still tasted like gunpowder and unfinished business. Batman turned toward the city skyline. "Kingpin's not done here." Matt nodded. "Neither am I." They vanished into the Gotham night, two devils walking side by side. One in black, one in red, both knowing this was only round one. 3 nights later, Gotham was quiet in the way only Gotham could be, where quiet meant no one had screamed in the last 5 minutes. The city was still recovering from the dockyard fire. News anchors rattled off damage estimates in the millions. Whispers in alleys spoke about Batman's new partner in red, and half the underworld swore they saw Joker swim out of the harbor, riding a tire like a yacht. High above the streets, on the ledge of an old clock tower, Daredevil stood with his billy club resting across his shoulders. Nightwing was next to him, arms crossed, watching the rooftops like they were a racetrack. "You sure about staying?" Nightwing asked. "Your city's not gonna wait for you forever." Matt smirked. "Neither will yours." Nightwing chuckled. "Fair enough." A shape emerged from the shadows behind them. Cape first, then cowl. Then the kind of presence that made conversation feel like a privilege. "Kingpin made it back to New York," Batman said. "But not empty-handed. Oscorp tech, Star Labs tech, enough to build something dangerous." "And Joker?" Matt asked. Batman's jaw tightened. "He's in the wind. He won't stay there." Nightwing glanced between them. "So, what's the play?" Batman's eyes narrowed. "We follow the trail to New York. Kingpin doesn't get to keep what he stole. And Joker," he paused, the rain catching on his cowl. "Joker doesn't get to laugh about Gotham." Matt's lips curled into a faint grin. "Sounds like my kind of road trip." Elsewhere, a dimly lit office, walls lined with gold records, rare art, and security monitors. Kingpin stood in the center, hands behind his back, watching a video feed of the dockyard fire. On the monitor, a freeze frame of Batman and Daredevil side by side. Kingpin's gaze lingered on it for a long moment. Behind him, in the dark, Joker's voice drifted out like cigarette smoke. "See, told you they'd make a great team, which is why we should break them in half before they get comfortable." Kingpin didn't turn. "You worry about theatrics. I worry about results. The next shipment leaves in 3 weeks. If they interfere, they die." Joker's laugh was quiet, almost intimate. "Oh, I can work with that. You handle the big scary muscle, I'll handle the punchlines." From the far corner, Bullseye's voice cut in flat and certain. "And I'll handle the kill shot." Kingpin finally turned, the light catching on his white suit like a ghost in the dark. "Then it's agreed. Round 2. Joker's grin gleamed in the shadows. "Oh, I love sequels.